I have to say, this is one of the more exciting games for me. I love watching Borussia Dortmund, despite their problems in the Bundesliga. They're slightly bouncing back against Juventus, who have basically been tipped as this is a year they have to win it, or they're never going to win it for a while at least. And we're going to talk about both teams' tactics here from YouTube Space LA. Let's talk some tactics. So first and foremost, let's talk about Juventus. So top of the Serie A, off the back of a 2-2 draw against Cesena, a win against AC Milan. They're a little here or there in their form, but let's take a look at their formation they like to go with in this season. So in previous years, Juventus have went with a 3 at the back, but I think it's a good move to go back to a 4-4-2 because they lack pace in the centre defensive area for me. So that's their back four that they usually go with. Their midfield for me is the most threatening because like all Italian teams, they're hard to break down through the middle. Pirlo, the playmaker, Marchisio, Pogba, and then on the right side, Vidal kind of wanders. Sometimes they're very flexible as a midfield. And then up top, in this example, you have Llorente and Morata. I imagine that Carlos Tevez will come back in and play up top with Morata, who's been hot in form at the moment, picking up a lot of goals. The former Real Madrid man is like a poacher in there, and he picks up a lot of the balls. So what I imagine that Juventus are really good at doing is that when they go forward, they attack in numbers with their midfield. And this is where I think Borussia Dortmund will have issues because Borussia Dortmund have been conceding a lot of goals, basically with not defending well enough. And their goalkeeper, for me, Weidenfeller, was at fault for a couple of the goals they conceded against Mainz in the victory that they ended up getting. But he's definitely susceptible to some balls in the box. And I think that Morata is a poacher. They need to exploit that. So for me, Juventus are going to be a hard team to break down through the middle. Pirlo, as we know, is going to pick up most of the ball in the deeper areas. But what they use so well is their front. At least it works like a front three because Pogba always joins the attack. Because when he joins the attack, it somewhat looks like a 4-3-3. Vidal tucks in the middle, and then you've got that structure of Marchisio and Pirlo, who will often play alongside each other in the middle of midfield. But Marchisio is known to bomb up as well. They have a good idea of who moves forward and who sits back. You know Pirlo, watching him, he doesn't like to excel too much forward. He just kind of sits in this area and will pick up the ball. But what for me, it's using Paul Pogba. We talk about him a lot because he can wander wherever he wants. So imagine this is Pogba. He might start on the left, but if you watch their game against Cesena, he was picking up the ball in deeper areas, and he loves to thread these through passes through, which Carlos Tevez will eat up all day, and Morata's there to follow up. If you watch this guy, he's always on his toes. He never stops. When the ball is at a shot and goal, Morata is the first man to get there and follow up. He's like a good old-fashioned poacher striker who doesn't let anything finish without getting on the end of it. So I think that you could talk about Juventus' tactics. For me, it's their defensive problems. I think that they step up way too high in order to try and pick teams apart by winning balls in the area. But unlike the years ago when they had 3 solid centre-backs, their pace in the centre defence area is a problem. Cesena found a lot of joy playing these diagonal balls in behind. And if you notice Cesena's first goal from a team lower in the league, they shouldn't be scoring this easily against Juventus. They exploited the lack of pace in there. And that's where I think that Borussia Dortmund, they have an abundance of pace up top. Marco Reus, Aubameyang, Kagawa joins up the attack. They have so much pace that this is where Juventus could definitely be exploited. Being at home, I imagine them to hold it a little bit deeper. I don't imagine they'll get caught too high up in trying to win the ball because if you close that space in behind, you're limiting Royce to obviously his passing ability, and his shooting is up there with with some of the best in the world. But Aubameyang, for me, needs space to drive in behind. He has been in a good run of form, but if you limit that space, I think Juventus will have a better chance of not conceding goals. So that's how I imagine Juventus will play. I think they'll sit a little bit deeper. They've got a standard back line. I think with Patrice Evra been in there, providing a little bit more experience. And the experience of Chiellini, as we know, Bonucci and there, these guys remind me, they partner each other in the back for the Italian national team. They understand each other well. But again, Chiellini, like many others, for me, in the World Cup, I think he get caught. He was playing out of position for most of the time. He's played at left back, but he gets caught diving in. And that's going to be a problem if he gets caught too high up out of position. But for me, Juventus, straightforward team. They're not at the best form as they have been in a few years in the Serie A. Their run in the Champions League has not been great either. So they really need to prove themselves this year. And I imagine they'll be out to prove a point against Borussia Dortmund, who we're going to look at now. So many people are counting out Borussia Dortmund because of their inconsistent form in the Bundesliga. But although a little bit more extreme, they just need to highlight again the Chelsea team that finished 6th in the league. I think it could be a blessing for Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. If you watch their performances in their group stage, I thought they were very good. I thought they were very attack-minded, which I love to watch because I love watching Borussia Dortmund. Their fans get right behind them. Even though they're in a struggling situation in the Bundesliga, they're still there putting their team forward. And I think that Borussia Dortmund are still trying to play to the way that they work You know what I mean? They're not changing because they're losing many goals at the back. They're still trying to play attractive football, and I love that about them. And I think this could be dangerous against a team like Juventus, who could allow to give them a lot of space unless they sort things out a little bit more at the back. But it will be a hard game against Juventus, especially in Italy for the first leg. But I think that Borussia Dortmund, if they come away with not conceding many goals, maybe just conceding one in the Serie A, I think they've got a great chance of going through. I really do. They're one of my favourite teams to watch. I love Royce up top. Playing sort of in behind Aubameyang with Kagawa joining the attack. So let's take a look at their formation that they've played in one of their past games. Hummels and Immobile have kind of been out sick. Recently there's been a bug going around, so we don't know whether Hummels will come back in. I know Immobile has been out of favour with Aubameyang scoring so many goals up top. I think if Hummels comes back, it'll be that usual 4-4-2 of Subotic, Hummels, Piszczek and Schmelzer. The standard back line that they've had for many years. It's been somewhat strong, unless you look at this year in which they've been out through injuries and they haven't been playing as well as they should. But Socrates will usually play in the midfield if Hummels is not out. In the defensive pairing if Hummels is not fit. And that 4-4-2 transitions into a 4-3-3 when they go forward, because Aubameyang plays as a front man. If you look here, Marco Reus, for many games, especially against the Mainz game, he picks the ball up in the left area. He loves to play that outside of the right foot pass and split defenders because Aubameyang is so fast, over 10 or 15 yards. That's where they're going to be dangerous. If Kagawa's not playing in there, Mkhitaryan will come in there and play. Obviously, Gundogan, who I'm a big fan of, will hold their defensive line at the back. But I think that their best chance, I talk about this a lot, diagonal run from wide, split the defence, because Juventus are not the fastest in there, and you happen to have two of the fastest players in the world for me, and Marco Reus and Aubameyang. The idea is to hold it at the back. Do not concede. Do not get caught allowing space for Carlos Tevez and Morata to find you in behind. But get the ball up into that final third, play it around, get Marco Reus to find those dynamic passes. Reus is known for his speed, his wide attacking ability, but if you watch him this year with Dortmund, he's finding the ball in a lot of number 10 roles, and he's great at finding through passes. And Aubameyang's been on the end of many of them, especially the game against Mainz. So I think they'll go with a 4-4-2, with Royce playing right in behind and Kagawa in the middle. But that could transition into a 4-3-3 if they're more confident. So I'm so unsure about this game. I know that Borussia Dortmund are going to concede, but I still think that it could be a great game. It could be anything from 2-2 to maybe 2-1. It could be a close game if Juventus have got their defence on point. Could be a 1-0, but I'm going to just stick my head out and go with 2-1 to Borussia Dortmund. I kind of hope that it's the underdog thing. I want to back them because I want them to try and lift their season. Their fans, if you watch their games, I watch a lot of their games, they're still behind Borussia Dortmund, even though they're sitting in the bottom half. They just got out relegation after their last two victories, but I want them to do well. I feel so bad for Borussia Dortmund because they have great players like Lewandowski taken from them, Götze, and many people are like, oh, they don't sell their best players. They do. It's hard to compete with Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga because they have a lot more money, has to be said. So I'm rooting for the underdog. I want Borussia Dortmund to do well. Obviously, I like Juventus as well. No discredit to any Juventus fans out there. They've got my underdog vote at the moment. So 2-1, I think, for Borussia Dortmund. Going into the leg back in Germany. Excited for this game. Leave your comments in the section below. As always, we're bringing you a lot of Champions League coverage. You won't see Champions League coverage like this anywhere, I have to say, on the internet or even in the US. Agree, disagree? Leave your comments in the section below.